What's going on, guys? Marco with Dynasty Nerds, and I am bringing you my start-sit wide receivers for Week 6. All right, guys, before we jump into it, I want to remind you, drop me a follow on Twitter at Marco_14P. My DMs are always open for any fantasy, redraft, and dynasty questions that you may have, whether you're going through a rebuild or trying to win this year. I'm happy to help with any questions that you guys have, so don't forget, Marco_14P. Also, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel. We've got tons and tons of content coming out each and every week. We've been ramping it up here more and more as we get further and further into the season, and we are going to have tons of content in the offseason that you will not want to miss. So subscribe to this YouTube channel. And if you want 15% off the DynastyGM tool, access to the Nerd Herd, the extra podcast episode every week, we've got tons and tons of content for you if you subscribe and join the Nerd Herd using the promo code 14P or the link in the description below. 15% off. Don't miss out on that opportunity. So let's jump into it. I'm going to kick off with my wide receiver starts for Week 6. The first one is a guy I am pumped to tell you to start because he's basically going to be a start every single week of the season at this point. Maybe weeks 10 and 15, he might have some issues just based on the schedule, but as long as he is healthy, DK Metcalf should be a lock in your rosters, in your lineups each and every single week. He's averaging 10 targets a game over the last 3 games. He had a little bit of a slower start as Geno Smith kind of grew into this offense, really took the helm here. And obviously he played some tougher defenses the first 2 weeks, but this schedule is shaping up really, really nicely for the Seattle Seahawks. They're throwing the ball a ton. Like I said, DK Metcalf over the last 3 weeks is averaging 10 targets a game. He is a guy who's getting into the end zone regularly. He's had a couple fumbles that have, lowered his production total, but ultimately he is someone who I think is a top 15 wide receiver for the rest of the season. I told you guys to trade for him last week, and if you didn't, you still might have some opportunity because there might be some managers who are either rebuilding and are thinking, I don't know if this is going to be the long-term answer for DK, or they might be someone who is contending but is nervous about Geno Smith, and those are buy windows. I don't know if you can do it, but if you got specific trade questions, drop them in the comments below, or feel free to shoot me a DM on Twitter at Marco_14P. I think in Week 6, DK Metcalf can find the end zone. I know the Arizona Cardinals have not let up a ton of touchdowns to the wide receiver position. They have got a really solid secondary that is a concern. It's for sure a concern. It's a divisional rivalry, and that is no joke either. But DK Metcalf has just been impressive against the press. He's been impressive against man coverage, and he is just one of those violent physical players who plays the wide receiver position well. I think he finds the end zone in Week 6, and even if he does it, that 10 targets a game volume is going to get you across the finish line, especially in PPR leagues. All right, the next start I've got for you, I've got really a start that I'm excited about, and then a start that I know is risky, but I think this week he could pay off. So let's start with the safe bet, and that is DeVonta Smith against the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the Dallas Cowboys defense is one that has shown they are incredible at rushing the quarterback, and they can cause turnovers. But something else they do is they let up the big play, and they're going against an offensive line for the Philadelphia Eagles that is stout. So I think that Jalen Hurts is going to get DeVonta Smith involved often and early in this one. We've seen A.J. Brown kind of seen up and down targets, and DeVonta Smith has seen some of that. But for the most part, he's seeing solid volume, and I think against this Dallas defense, he is going to be able to find open windows here. He's going to be able to separate from most of these guys because it's not likely that he sees Trayvon Diggs. I think that's shadow coverage coming for A.J. Brown, and DeVonta Smith is going to be able to capitalize on that. He's an insanely talented wide receiver, just a route technician, and Jalen Hurts will be able to find him early and often against the Philadelphia Eagles in this one. So I like him as a start wide receiver 2 with upside in Week 6. All right, it's time for my risky start, and honestly, if you're in a redraft league, you may have dropped him, and I totally get it. He's a bench stash for me in most situations, but I've got a feeling in this one, he's still running tons and tons of routes. He's on the field for almost every single offensive snap this team has. He's starting to get more and more involved, and this is a secondary that you can take advantage of. My risky start, if you want to throw him in the flex, you're dealing with bye weeks, you lost Amon-Ra St. Brown, maybe you lost Brandon Cooks, Darnell Mooney. I know. There hasn't been a single week you've been excited about Darnell Mooney. I think in Thursday Night Football, this team is going to be able to pass the ball more than they have the past couple of weeks. We've started to see Darnell Mooney make some plays. Last week, he had an incredible catch with a really, really nice release. He's showcasing some of his highlights, some of his ability to separate, some of his ability to run these routes. And of course, he's going to have a drop here or there. That's just kind of his game a little bit. But also, Justin Fields looked really good in that second half last week. I don't know if it's going to be something that carries over into this week, but if you are desperate, you got guys on buys, you've got injuries, I think Darnell Mooney is a guy who you can expect flex production from in week 6. Now, if somebody dropped him and you are one of the people who, does have a couple guys on buy, or you have someone who's hurt, I'm not spending a ton of fab on Darnell Mooney. I don't think you have to. I think you can probably pick him up even after waivers run, or if you've got priority, I'm not wasting top 3 priority on Darnell Mooney, top 4 even, but I think he is a sneaky play in week 6, in PPR leagues especially. Okay, so let's move over here to my wide receiver sits for week 6, and that is going to kick it off here with Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk is a good player. He had some incredible flashes early. He was seeing the volume that you love to see for a breakout season for a wide receiver. The last 2 weeks have been a little rough. And it really has not been Christian Kirk's fault. It has been no one on this offense's fault except for really Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence has had some growing pains. He's been turning the ball over a ton the last 2 weeks. I think that he will corral this in, but until we've seen proof that he can stop turning over the football, Christian Kirk is a sit right now, or an enormous fade. You can throw him at your flex 2 spot with confidence. Flex spot, I'm a little nervous because we're not sure if he's going to get the volume. We're not sure if the Jaguars are going to hold on to the football. And against the Indianapolis Colts, who have a very solid defense, Christian Kirk is someone I'm fading. If you have the opportunity to put him on your bench, feel free to do that. If you've got specific questions, start sit between Christian Kirk and someone else, drop them below. Hit me up on Twitter at Marco_14P. I've been answering every question that I'm getting, whether it be on YouTube or on Twitter. So feel free to hit me up wherever, and I'll get to those. Let's talk about my second guy I am sitting or fading in week 6. All right, so it's a guy that's been good, but the offense is inconsistent. He's going against a tough defense. It's Drake London. The reality is that in week 6, Drake London is a wide receiver 3, but if he can get into the end zone, he can flirt with that wide receiver 2 number. So it's something against the San Francisco defense that I'm not really expecting for him to get into the end zone, and because of that, he is an enormous fade for me. Like I said, if you got to throw him in the flex with bye weeks or injuries, that's fine, but do not expect, 15 plus points from Drake London. He would need to get in the end zone to get there. Marcus Mariota is a okay quarterback for fantasy purposes to get your, Drake Londons of the world where you need them to be. But against a tough defense, I just don't see it happening unless he were able to fall into the end zone in this one. And I don't really think the Atlanta Falcons are going to be able to get there, especially with whoever they're marching out there at running back right now. So Drake London is a wide receiver 3 for me. Again, if you've got specific start sits with Drake London and someone else on your team, drop the questions below. Hit me up on Twitter. I'm happy to get to any questions you may have. Before we wrap up, I want to remind you to subscribe to this YouTube channel. We've got tons and tons of content coming out each and every week in season and in the off season. And use the link below or use promo code 14P to get 15% off the Nerd Herd, the Dynasty GM tool, the extra podcast episode a week, tons and tons of Dynasty Nerd content that you can get access to for 15% off if you use the link in the description or use promo code 14P. That's the number 14. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out. It's been fun. Don't forget to be kind, do good, and I'll see you next time.